Baby, ya yo me enteré, se nota cuando me ves. Ahí donde no has llegado, sabes que yo te llevaré. Y dime qué quieres beber, es que tú eres mi bebé. Y de nosotros, ¿quién va a hablar si no nos dejamos ver?
Well, welcome to the start of my 2021 positional rankings. Today I'm starting with catcher, but yeah, you're not going to agree with everything I say. In fact, you're probably not going to agree with a lot of what I say, but you know, hopefully you can hear me out and try to understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to be doing top 10s with a few honorable mentions. There's going to be like 5, 6, maybe 7 at most honorable mentions for each position. First of all, I just want to explain what I used to create these rankings. I used a sample size that was basically their past 3 healthy years, as long as it doesn't go further back than 2017. So, like, for example, Buster Posey, he played from 2017 to 2019, didn't play in 2020, so I just used his 2017 to 2020. So that's pretty much how this is working. I weighted it for recency, and it basically just places more weight on recency because recency should count for more. Obviously, since it was a small sample size, most guys got at most like 200 to 230 plate appearances. For most guys, the weight, it's going to be primarily on 2019. For Grandal here, for example, 2019 carries about 1.7 times more weight than 2020 does, just because of how the weights work. If it were unweighted, it would be about 3.3 times more for 2019, which I feel like is quite a bit more weight. So if that makes any sense at all, that's how the weights are working. The stats I used are walk rate, strikeout rate, WRC plus, DRC plus, xwOBA, base running per 650 plate appearances. I'm an adjusted form of defensive runs saved. And then I also use steamer projections. Obviously, sample size and volume is important as well. For defense, for catcher at least, it's basically just taking into account catcher defensive adjustment, which is found on Baseball Prospectus. It basically averages called strikes above average from Prospectus and RES from Baseball Savant. And then it just adds that in with the other aspects of CDA from Prospectus, and then it puts it on a positional adjustment. So for catchers, realistically, an average defensive catcher is going to be around 10.7 adjusted defense over 1,250 innings. So just keep that in mind. Without further ado, let's get right into the rankings, starting with the 5 honorable mentions I have here. So the first guy, Buster Posey of the San Francisco Giants. Next, Travis d'Arnaud from the Atlanta Braves, had a really good year last year. Next is Tyler Flowers, who is currently a free agent, but his defense is really good. He definitely deserves to be an honorable mention. Austin Hedges, similar to Flowers, can't really hit that well, but Hedges is one of the best, if not the best defensive catcher in baseball. It's kind of funny because the Indians have both him and Roberto Perez, and they are probably 2 of the top 5 best defensive catchers in baseball. They might even be the best 2 defensive catchers in baseball. So, yeah, that's pretty great for the Indians. And finally, the Diamondbacks catcher, Carson Kelly. All these guys, they just barely missed the top 10. You could probably make arguments for all of these guys to be top 10. For Posey, I think if he didn't miss 2020, I think putting him in the top 10 would probably make a lot more sense. But he's aging, and he opted out, and he's a catcher, and catchers don't really age well. So I have a hard time putting him in the top 10, but I think you can definitely make the argument for that. Starting it out at number 10, the Pirates catcher, Jacob Stallings. Stallings is seriously one of the most underrated catchers in baseball, and I really wanted to put him higher on this list. He is incredibly talented. He has a 95 DRC plus, which places him just 5% below average. League average catcher WRC plus is usually around 85 to 90. They sacrifice a lot of offense for defense at catcher a lot of times. So yeah, that's just important to note. Stallings is probably an average to above average hitting catcher because of how bad catchers are offensively. He has an 86 WRC plus, so he has underperformed a little bit. Steamer does project him at an 81 WRC plus, which is 19% below average. Just remember that every number above or below is 1% above or below average. However, he is a great defensive catcher. He comes in at 29.3 adjusted defense for 1,250, which is about 18.6 runs above average. He is great. He's probably one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. The main thing that kept me from putting him higher on this list was his Sample size is pretty small. He's only got 394 plate appearances and almost 900 innings over the past 3 years, so that's obviously something I can't overlook completely. Definitely a top 10 catcher in baseball. Coming in as the number 9 catcher in baseball, the San Diego Padres catcher, Austin Nola. Nola is someone I seriously considered putting way higher, but he has also a relatively low sample size, and Steamer doesn't project him great. I do think Nola is a guy who could seriously jump up on this list by the end of 2021. Nola, he's pretty much an all-around player. He has a 112 DRC plus with a 125 WRC plus, so he has gotten a bit lucky, but a 112 DRC plus is still very good. Steamer only projects him as a 92 WRC plus, but like I said, again, that's above average because, catchers suck at hitting. He also has 23.1 adjusted defense per 1250. Now, the only problem is he only has 370 innings at catcher because he is also a corner infield. That could definitely be a thing because, as they play catcher, guys tend to get more tired and they might not be as good offensively. So that could definitely be something that drags his offensive value down. Not drags down, but it definitely could make it go down. I really like Austin Nola for the Padres, but number 9 for now, where he is. Okay, coming in at number 8, the Red Sox catcher, Christian Vasquez. A lot of people are going to call this an underrate. I already know. The thing is, catcher is a lot better than people say. Also, Steamer doesn't project him great. He's only projected at an 85 WRC plus. He has been very good over the past 2 years. Before 2019, he had a 42 WRC plus in 2018 and a 71 DRC plus in 2018. Then he broke out. He's had back-to-back years of above average offensive production. That being said, I do trust Steamer WRC plus predictions a lot because they're super predictive to next year performance. And he has an 85 WRC plus by Steamer. Now, he is also a very good defensive catcher, coming in at 20.9 adjusted defense for 1250. That is well above average. He can probably project at about 100, which would move him up on this list a little bit. But for now, number 8, I feel like it's a good spot for Vasquez. Coming in at number 7, a huge breakout candidate for 2021, and I feel like literally everybody is talking about this, but it's the Blue Jays catcher, Danny Jansen. But he has gotten very unlucky offensively. A 78 WRC plus, but his DRC plus is at 94, so he's been just 6% below average in terms of deserved, and he has been 22% below average in terms of results. Steamer also projects him at a 97 WRC plus, which is a huge breakout, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if this happens. In fact, I would bet on it happening. He also has a 325 xWOBA, so you can see he's gotten very unlucky, and I definitely see a breakout for him next year. He also is a very good defensive catcher, coming in at 19.6 adjusted defense per 1250. That is well above average. He is a very good all-around player, all-around catcher. He's going to have a breakout year in 2021, but as for now, number 7 for Danny Jansen is a perfect spot. Coming in as the 6th best catcher in baseball, the Angels catcher Max Stassi. Sandwiched between 2 very good years. In 2019, Stassi was bad. He had a 5 WRC plus and a 49 DRC plus, which is pretty awful. In the 2 years surrounding that, in 2018, he had a 100 WRC plus with an 86 DRC plus, and in 2020, he bounced back with a 137 WRC plus and a 117 DRC plus. He's not going to be the same player he was in 2019. He actually has an 87 WRC plus weighted with an 88 DRC plus, and Steamer projects him at 87. So that's very balanced all across right there. Plus, he has a 313 xWOBA, but that's all in that's the exact same range right there, which is actually that's pretty cool to see. And then there's his defense. I mean, Stassi is a top 3, top 4 defensive catcher in baseball. He is legitimately he is incredible, and if he can sustain around a 90 WRC plus to 100, what he's projected for and what his defense is at, number 6 feels like a really good spot for Stassi. Coming in at number 5, the Chicago Cubs catcher Wilson Contreras. Contreras is a guy that I really like going into next year. I feel like I see him getting kind of underrated. People just look at, he's had 2 horrible years defensively, which was true, but I will always say this: context matters a lot. Contreras is a guy who in 2018 and 19 was very bad defensively. Then in the 2019-2020 offseason, Contreras worked with the same catching coach who helped JT Realmuto and Jorge Alfaro. What happened to Contreras? Well, he was very good defensively, 20.5 adjusted defense per 1250, coming off back-to-back negative seasons, which you don't see often from catchers because I feel like it's just incredibly hard to do. So I think it's safe to say Contreras is definitely at very worst in average, and he's definitely above average, I would say. Plus, he's one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. He's projected for a 106 WRC plus by Steamer. His DRC plus is at 104, his WRC plus at 114. So he has gotten a bit lucky, but not a ton. But with his offense and defensive mix like that, he's going to be one of the best catchers in baseball. Coming in at number 4, the A's catcher, Sean Murphy. Murphy, he is really good. I will say this, he has gotten a bit lucky offensively. A 133 WRC plus compared to a 110 DRC plus. So that's about a 23% drop off there. But 110 is still well above average, and he's still projected for a 106 WRC plus, which I think he will outperform. Not to mention, he was a top prospect. Like I said again, context matters. He was a top catching prospect, known for his defense. And after struggling in 2019 and 2020, he was a pretty good defensive catcher. So yeah, a lot of people I see they're super high on Murphy. I used to not be that high on him, but I'm really starting to see why people think Murphy is so good because, well, he is really good. And number 4, I think feels like a very good spot for him. Coming in at number 3, and this might seem like a bit of a stretch, but the Dodgers catcher, Will Smith. The thing about Smith is he's kind of like the exact opposite of Murphy. Like in 2019, he played a really, really good catcher defense. He came in at 23.3 adjusted defense per 1250. And then in 2020, he was the exact opposite. He came in at negative 6.5, which is, I don't know what caused that. But for now, I'm going to assume he is going to be an average defensive catcher next year, in which case he is better than Murphy. He's better than Contreras because of his bat. Steamer projects him at a 107 WRC plus, but that really seems like an under projection. He has a 140 DRC plus and a 150 WRC plus, along with a 361 xWOBA, which is the best out of catchers. But yeah, Will Smith, another top prospect catcher. If he can be above average defensively like he was in 2019, he probably the best catcher in baseball because that's how good his bat is. Like his bat is so good. Especially for a catcher. I mean, you don't see that from a catcher. He's going to have some insane years here coming up. Really, really, really like Will Smith, in case you can't tell. Coming in at number 2, the Phillies catcher, JT Realmuto. Now, 1 and 2 are kind of 1A and 1B, but I really don't see much reason to put Realmuto over the guy who's at number 1, and most of you probably already know who it is. Realmuto is very good. He's probably one of the most complete players in baseball, let alone the catcher position. He has a 118 WRC plus weighted since 2018 with a 110 DRC plus. He's projected for a 103 WRC plus next year as well. And then he is also like just kind of insane base running wise. Like, I don't know how a catcher has 6.1 base running runs per 650 innings, but Realmuto does. I don't know. It's really crazy. I think that definitely is going to start regressing soon because catchers, like I said, they don't age that well. That's going to be incredibly hard to sustain for a catcher. And I'll probably just do a comparison between him and Grandal here. But Grandal has a 121 WRC plus with a 117 DRC plus and a 113 Steamer WRC plus, which is really what sets them apart, that WRC plus difference. Like, Grandal is a better hitter. He's also very, very disciplined. He's got a 16 walk rate and a 24.8 K rate. That's incredibly disciplined. He's a pretty bad base runner, but like I'm not valuing that a ton in terms of catchers, and he's better than JT Realmuto defensively as well, just by a little bit, but he is. He's coming in at 28.8 adjusted defense per 1250. And Realmuto comes in at 26. Grandal's the better hitter, 113 Steamer WRC plus compared to 103, and a 117 DRC plus compared to 110. So that difference definitely makes up for the base running difference. I mean, yes, the base running difference does matter, but it's not enough to make up the offensive and defensive gap, in my opinion. 1 and 2, Grandal 1, Realmuto 2. Anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below or even on Twitter as well. Let me know if you have any questions because I bet you a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. And look out for the next video. It's going to be first baseman next time. Again, I do hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe if you are not already. And until next time, I am Jason Hayward Stan.